Hello, everybody. Welcome to Knock Off Rugby. Thanks for being here. It is a bye week this week, and instead of doing our normal previews and reviews and maybe team announcements, not much has been announced, to be honest. I think the Springbok squad has been announced for Argentina, so I'll do something on that a little bit later. But I thought I'd do a state of the championship, just basically seeing what all the teams' campaigns, how it's gone so far, what's gone right, what's gone wrong, what their paths are to victory or to winning the whole championship. I've got some bookie odds and how that aligns with my own opinions, obviously, because that's what this channel's about. Someone giving their rugby opinions and hoping that there's constructive opinions back. I'm just a fan and I love this game and I want to engage with the community and try and build a fraternity. As always, if you like this content and like this discussion, then please like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help. Leave a comment, leave your thoughts. I'd love to engage and get to know you. Anyway, so I think I'm going to do team by team, going from the least likely, according to the bookies, to win the championship to the most likely. The top two, when I get to them, it's dependent on bookies. Some has one team, the other has another team. So at this point in time, it's very, very close. The championship is one of the best ever in my memory, certainly. When last have you thought that every team has a chance of winning the championship going into round 5? Let's start off with then, I suppose, the least likely, Argentina. The bookies currently have them at 22-1 favorites. Well, not favorites, but 22-1 odds in terms of winning the championship. They've got a reasonable string of results. Well, I mean, not better or worse than any of the other teams. Everyone's got 2 wins and 2 losses. They took one off. They lost the first one quite badly in Argentina against the All Blacks, and then they took one from the All Blacks. Scores were 41-24 in that first game in the All Blacks' favour, and then it was 29-23. All Blacks managing to secure a bonus point loss. But it was still a win for Argentina, which was, it kept them in the running. They are on 9 points, so they are 2 behind the leaders and 1 behind second and third place. It does make it more difficult because their next 2 games are South Africa, and South Africa has been in really good form. I know every team can beat every other team on its day, but I think South Africa at the moment is the form team going into round 5. So Argentina are going to really need to step it up. They've got Thomas Albanaz coming back from a fractured finger, I believe it was. So that's really good for them. I mean, he's an outstanding player. So it's and generally throughout the campaign they've been pretty injury free. Besides him, I think they've come through relatively unscathed. There may be 1 or 2 that I'm missing, but they've come through relatively unscathed. So in terms of cohesion, it's really good for them. And they're looking like they'll be able to field their strongest side possible against the Boks. The one thing I do have as a worry is they have relinquished home field advantage. Now, anyone who knows Springbok fans know that there's quite a number of them in the UK, including myself, and I will be at the Twickenham game. So that's more like a Springbok home game, actually. Look, the only time the Argentines have ever beaten the Springboks in South Africa was at Durban. I think it was 2015. So they're playing in Durban this year. So there is a chance for a scalp for Argentina, definitely. I would actually go as far as to say is that that's probably their best shot. Twickenham has become kind of a fortress for the Springboks in recent years. We haven't lost them many times. So very difficult for them. And I see the only path to winning this competition for Argentina is 2 bonus point wins. Now, when I say path to victory, I'm trying to not include ways for them to win based on other results. With all the teams, I'm going to try and just mention how they can win by themselves and not worrying about other people's results. Now, Argentina, because they are 2 points essentially behind first place, this might be very difficult to do. They will most likely have to rely on another result going their way, or I would say the very least they have to beat the Springboks with 2 bonus points, and that's going to be very difficult. So yeah, so I think rightly, even though they're in the mix and they have found form recently in certain games, I actually believe that on their day they're one of the best attacking sides in the world. They have been unbelievable in the games that they won. Um, they almost fluffed it against Australia in the last game though. So, you know, they do still have that inconsistency row. It's one game, I suppose, a bit like the All Blacks at the moment, or actually one could argue a bit like every team in the Rugby Championship. It seems like one loss, one win, one loss, one win, so on, so on. However, when it comes to Argentina, I feel like this has been an ongoing trend for a while now. So yeah, great attacking. They're a little bit more confident in their set piece. However, it's going to be difficult against the Springboks. I do not see them winning the championship. I absolutely see them getting the wooden spoon this year. I think it's going to be 2-0 to the Boks. And yeah, I don't see Argentina walking away with many points in this upcoming next 2 rounds. Next up, surprisingly, when I say surprisingly, I understand why they are only third favourites, but I actually think they're good value for money in terms of betting. I'm not a betting man, so do not take my advice. But if I had to use my logical sense and what has transpired in the last couple of games, Australia are not a bad bet. The bookies currently have them as 12-1 in terms of winning the championship, and I think that's good money. Because I certainly think they have a chance. I definitely think. I'm not so. Look, let's not forget that the Bledisloe Cup is up for grabs, but they have to beat New Zealand twice. There's going to be one game in Australia, one game in New Zealand at Eden Park, especially the one in New Zealand's Eden Park. The Springboks couldn't get it done. However, I'm not suggesting that the Australians can't get it done based on the Springboks form. I mean, they absolutely blew the Springboks away in Ellis Park. So yeah, the Aussies are 2 wins, 2 losses, just like everyone else in the championship. However, they lead the table by a full point. And what we have seen in this championship is very difficult or very unlikely to get a bonus point if you are winning. There hasn't been too many blowouts other than the one at Ellis Park. And, well, actually, now that I think about it, there's been 3. One in Argentina, one South Africa, and one in New Zealand. There's only not been a blowout in Australia. So even more, as I'm talking, more gives you more of an idea of why. I don't know. I think they should be higher up in terms of the favourites tag. I think the bookies are a bit generous here. I certainly, out of all 4 teams, I'd probably put my money on the just based on the odds, not based on who I think are actual favourites, but based on the odds. And to make a buck, maybe Australia's the good pick. Look, they do have certain issues in terms of injuries and players that aren't going to be available. It looks like Will Skelton has been summoned back to La Rochelle, and it also looks like James O'Connor won't be available either. He has openly said that he will get on a plane and come back for the test if he is allowed to. So I have a feeling there's still discussions on that. I don't think Will Skelton will be back. So this is 2 of the most influential players, especially in Will Skelton, And then the other problem is Tom Wright at fullback. He's out with an ACL, I believe, and he'll be out for the rest of the season. And that's massive for them because Tom Wright really could cut defenses open. They're also about 4 or 5 deep in the fly-off channel. So yeah, so they've got a few injuries, a few positional concerns. However, I do not doubt that they still have the capability of taking at least a test against New Zealand. I'm thinking the home test I think they're playing in Perth. So yeah, Australia is a very tough side to predict. I know, as I've said before, I know every team has beaten each other, but Australia with this whole they're losing Joe Schmidt. They've lost a couple of key players to injury or to availability. Um, they seem to be very, very inconsistent in terms of discipline. I mean, they should have really won the game against Argentina this past weekend, but discipline absolutely let them down. I mean, just to give you can imagine 4 tries to 1, and Argentina was the team that only scored 1 try, and they still won the game. Australia have this knack of giving away points very early in the game, and then all of a sudden having a second wind and coming back. So I understand the bookies' odds here. However, I do think it's good money because I believe in terms of their path to winning the competition, they might need to win both games. I'm not saying if they want to take everyone out of the equation, they would need to win both games, and I would say at least one of them with a bonus point. However, they could still be in a very good position if they win one game and then perhaps get a losing bonus point. They are the log leaders by an entire point, and that counts in this competition, as we've seen. If South Africa drop a game against Argentina, all of a sudden, I'm sure those odds will change very quickly. All of a sudden, and Australia can manage to get one win. I don't think they're going to win at Eden Park, so we'd have to wait for round 6 to see. But they're a good shot here. They're a really good shot, and they're on form. And I'm sure that they're going to play for their coach. They're going to play for Joe Schmidt. He's leaving, and I think they're going to want to give him something to leave with in terms of a positive result. I know the Bledisloe is more important to Kiwis and Aussies than the Rugby Championship is at this point. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I have a feeling that the Bledisloe is what's important here. I'll comment on what it's going to feel like for Scott Robertson and the Kiwis, but I think the Wallabies just want a taste of that cup again. I think it's been since 2003, almost 22 or 23 years since they've had it, and I think they desperately want it back. And when will there be a better time? It has to be now. It's now or never. I certainly think that they need to be ready for an onslaught from New Zealand, for a bounce back, for a response, because that's New Zealand's known for that. I, however, do think that they will be finishing third this year. I know they've had a good start. They had a big win in Ellis Park, and there's a lot of positivity around the Bledisloe. But I do think that it maybe now is a stretch too far for Australia. And remember, guys, I could be wrong. I said that I would give my opinions, I'd give my prediction, and it is just what I think. And I could very well be wrong. I've been impressed by them, but I do think the round 5 and round 6 is going to be a stretch too far for the Aussies. On to the second favourites. Now, most of the bookies that I saw, or most of the odds that I saw, were in this order. But there are others that favour the All Blacks over the South Africans. But I'm going to go on this one, which is they have the All Blacks at around 1.5 times your money back. So they are second favourites. They're currently on 10 points, 2 wins, 2 losses. Emphatic loss in Wellington and a historic win in Eden Park against both those games against the Springboks. They had an emphatic win against Argentina in the first round, and then a loss that they managed to sneak a losing bonus point out of, which was surprising to me because I thought that score really flattered them. I thought they were outplayed. So in a way, it was emphatic as well. I know the scoreline in that second game against Argentina suggests different. But if you go watch the game and go and look at some of the stats, you'll see what I'm talking about. They have their own injury concerns. Noah Hotham is now out completely. They're about 4 or 5 deep now in their scrum off. However, I'm not sure. Look, I just want to be clear that no injury lists have been released, so I'm not sure what the team and the squads are. I'm just speculating here. But they're relatively in a good place, I think. They've also relatively been unscathed other than their scrum off position. So in terms of continuity, unless because of the loss, Scott Robertson is going to decide to swing the axe and maybe change some guys around, which I think might not be a bad thing. I'm not sure he will, though, because there is low pressure here. They're they are second favourites to win the championship. So, um, will they have that courage to maybe put a few guys in? Ruben Love, you know, I think that guy deserves quite a bit of time in the seat, especially before the World Cup. Caleb Clark, I think, needs to be back there. I think Rico needs to be put back at 13. I've never been too much of a Rico fan, but he is defensively sound. And perhaps that's what they're going to need against the Australians, who like to counter-attack. They also need guys good in the air. Caleb Clark again. There's been talks about maybe Geordie should go back to 15. So, I think 10 is a problem as well. Beauden Barrett is amazing. And D-Mac's also amazing. D-Mac's good usually under the high ball, but they both struggled against the Springboks, and I'm not sure. It's hard to say where the pressure got to them, because these are two really, really experienced players. A lot of that All Black side is pretty experienced. I know Rossi said they had 8 guys under 10 caps, but you would never say that, right? I mean, I look at the All Black side and I recognize most of them. So they're going to have Cody Taylor back, which surely, because he's out with concussion, I don't think it's anything other than a head knock. So he should be back, which is going to be a big, big bonus for them as well. Their props looked like Tyrell Lomax, especially, it looked like they were a bit short of a gallop. But now with these last couple of games under their belt, maybe they'll get back up to form. I do think that the All Blacks have the second best set piece in the world. Look, everybody attacked their set piece, but I think, without sounding too confident or arrogant, I think South Africa's set piece is by a distance at the moment, not the line out. When I say set piece, probably just the scrum, but I think the scrum is probably the best in the world by quite a distance. And when you're measuring against that, you're always not going to look up to standard. I do think we'll see a reaction, a set piece reaction, and a gameplay reaction. I think the All Blacks are going to come out firing at Eden Park. Let's hope they can. Their problem, as always, or not as always, as everyone else, has been consistency. They've won one, lost one, won one, lost one. That's also been a kind of an overriding pattern of last year as well. They couldn't just seem in the big games to carry momentum. So yes, I think they're a good shout as well. In my opinion, well, I suppose their path to victory for the Rugby Championship will be 2 wins over Australia. They will need quite big wins if they want to take out South Africa's chance. They'll need bonus point wins with big margins, because I think the Springboks are currently 30 points ahead in terms of points difference. So yeah, I do think they're a good shout. I think they are up for a response. I think they're going to win one game. I think they're going to win in Park and they're going to lose in Perth. And they are going to then end second. Just by points difference, because I think Eden Park they're going to run away with Eden Park, and I think it's going to be a close game in Perth. So I do think they jump Australia on points difference. I also, and maybe not even. I think they're gonna get a losing bonus point in Perth, and then Australia's not going to get a losing bonus point in Eden Park. So yeah, I do think the All Blacks will finish second, and I agree with the bookies. Then we have the favourites, basically just over even money. So they're not heavily favoured, but they are favourites, I suppose. Are the Springboks, and I suppose it was largely due to last week's result. Now, I'm always one to be very careful over one result. South Africa's performance was amazing. They controlled the air, they controlled the set piece. They looked like an all-round team. I think that was the general consensus, right? However, Argentina are not to be stifled with. And although they are the favourites, and I'll tell you why I think they're the favourites as well, they still need to be very careful. There are things that concern me and things that I'm super positive about. The positives here, they look in great form. A big win will boost big confidence. They'll go into the next game against Argentina feeling like superhumans. They currently sit second on the log with points difference. They tied it at log table points with New Zealand at 10 all, but they are about 30 points above New Zealand in terms of points difference. They are 1 point behind Australia, obviously. So yeah, it's actually not very easy to justify them as favorites. Now, my concerns are, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but we do chop and change our team quite a bit. So cohesion is sometimes questionable. I know the last game we seemed to click, but that's not happened every single game this year. So that's one of the things that I'm worried about, because I do believe that out of the 33-man squad, I believe it was, that was announced earlier, one will play in Durban, and one will then travel perhaps a little bit earlier. They'll send a couple of guys to England to get acclimatized and used to the environment, and I think a completely different squad will play at the Twickenham Test. Now, this is not rocket science. He's been doing Rassie Erasmus has been doing this for, I can't even remember how long. So I'm pretty sure that we can all agree that's probably going to happen. I'm not actually sure what the mix of the sides will be, whether it will be a side that looks like Wellington and a side that looks like Eden Park split. I think they're going to mix it up. I think there's going to be a bunch of guys that played in Eden Park and a couple of guys that played Wellington. They're going to make one squad, and then the rest are going to make the other squad. So I think it's going to be really hard to analyze for the Argentines, but yeah, it is a concern in a way, because we've shown a bit of rustiness or lack of cohesion of late. I'm discounting the last game in Wellington, obviously. Then the positives for me would be, it's basically 2 home games for the Springboks. Twickenham is a home game for Scrims. Don't get me wrong. I know it's scheduled as Argentina's home game, but that stadium is going to be full of South Africans. So they're going to feel a lot more from the crowd than Argentina is going to. So that does say a lot. Also, their points difference is quite high. South Africa's points difference is superior here. So I think if it ends up in a tie, I think just via points difference, South Africa is in the driving seat. I also think, because of what I've said about the travel factor and the venue factor, I think that South Africa really, really is the favorite. No value for money though, so don't bet on them. Their path to victory, I think, is just 2 wins. I think this, like I said before, I think the series between Australia and New Zealand are going to be split. It's going to be 1-1, and so that means that South Africa really just needs to concern themselves with 2 wins. A bonus point will be an extra, but 2 wins should get them over the line. And yeah, I believe that they are going to do it. I believe that's how it's going to end. It's going to end with the Springboks number 1 taking the Rugby Championship. And yeah, one of the most hotly contested championships ever. Go back 2 rounds and I wouldn't have said this. I would have thought that, because I was expecting us to have a response in Wellington, but not with a bonus point, and that would have made it a little bit more difficult in terms of round 5 and 6. So I wouldn't have said that the Springboks would have been favourites or even had a real chance to win the championship after round 3. So guys, let me know. What do you think is going to happen? Do you agree with the favourites tags? Do you agree with the bookies? Do you think there's going to be upsets? Do you think it's going to be the same as round 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, where one team wins one week and the other team wins the next week? Who are you following? Who do you believe is going to win? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with my thoughts? Let me know in the comments. Thanks. As always, guys, be safe. Thanks very much for supporting us. Cheers.